Well, this will be my final devotion on Ephesians, and then I'll go over to Christmas for a couple of days, and we'll go on to the next book, starting from Revelation and going back to Genesis. We're in Ephesians chapter 5 and 6. This is one of my favorite sections to speak about when I'm talking about marriage enrichment. When the feminists say that husbands want to use their wives as a step stool or as a slave because of the writings of Paul, where he says wives are to be subject to their husbands in everything. And one of the things that I point out whenever I cover this section of Scripture is that it clearly says in Ephesians 5:21 that we're to be in submission to each other. And they seem to always leave that verse out. The other thing that they leave out is even more important, and it's very clearly stated in two different verses. One is that husbands are to love their wives as Christ loved the church and was willing to die for her. If a husband loves his wife so much that he's willing to die for her, I don't think she'll have any trouble at all submitting to his final authority in the home. The other part is that husbands are to love their wives as they love their own body, and I'll tell you, most of us guys love our bodies pretty well. We feed them pretty well. We rest them pretty well. We do everything that we can to maintain them, and if we do that with our wives are going to love us quite a bit. So when you read Ephesians, be sure that you start all the way back at Ephesians 5:20 and read all the way through. The verse tells us clearly that Paul was writing about the relationship of Christ to the church, but he was also writing about the husband and wife relationship. And it goes on in chapter 6 to talk about children's obeying your parents in the Lord, for this is right to honor your father and mother, command with promise, so that it may be well with you and that you may live long on the earth. And then it has a caution to fathers. It says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipleship or discipline and instruction of the Lord. And then it goes on and talks about the relationship of us to our jobs. And one of the verses I like there is not by way of eye service as man pleasers, but as slaves of Christ doing the will of God from the heart. So many times today people try to be man pleasers and they're not God pleasers because it's not a heartfelt relationship. And we need to be sure that we understand that we're to do what's right and do what God says for us to do. And finally it closes out in verse 9 in chapter 6 and says, and masters, do the same thing to them and give up threatening, knowing that both your master and their master is the same in heaven. I think it's very, very clear that if we're in an authoritative position, whether it's in the home or whether it's in the workplace, that we're to remember that we have a master that we answer to, and he's in heaven, and what he wants is righteousness, justice, fairness, all kindness and gentleness and patience. Those are the things that are what he desires for us in all of our relationships. So whether you're the husband, whether you're the wife, or whether you're the child, remember that God desires for you to be obedient to him. And when you do that, the rest of the family will have no problem in the relationship that they have with you. And that's my thought for the day. And I'll see you on Monday and Tuesday to wish you a Merry Christmas and a little insight into the Christmas story before we close out the year. So that's my thought for the day. God bless you.